toilets.
Bring your meeting back to order. We take up our 10:15 public hearing. We need to open the public hearing, time is 10:38. And staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maury Anderson, Planning and Building Services. You have before you a public hearing to consider the correctness and reasonableness, not my words, code, of the recordation of a lien in the office of the Lassen County Recorder to recover costs incurred in the execution of an abatement of a public nuisance ordered by Lassen County Board of Supervisors on October 23rd, 2012 through Resolution 12054. The abated property is located at 214 9th Street in Westwood, owned by Animal Two Moons Gray and Likalele Kikana Gray. Yes, that's right. So the action request is to receive the report and adopt a resolution directing staff to record the lien with the office of the Lassen County Recorder. The estimate was approximately $3,000. It came out just under $4,000. Again, it's something that took place last summer. We got it cleaned up. Looks good, and we are in a position to recover those monies, hopefully. If you have questions about the process of the lien, I know Mr. Egan's here, and as well, Ms. Fauch.
This is like a tax sale, a delinquent tax sale or something.
Yeah,
Not really.
I
don't know how you guys handle that, that's why I asked the question.
it's very easy to understand. Richard, I would.
This is an abatement lien, is that right?
Yeah.
Where are you collecting the money?
It goes on the tax roll.
It will, the board will ask the auditor to place it on the tax roll, and then I'll collect it just as I would taxes when we sell the property. Either the taxpayer will pay it with their taxes, or it'll go delinquent, we'll sell it.
It'll become a lien on it.
It'll become a lien on the property.
Right.
And we'll collect it.
So we have it up for sale.
This particular property, I don't believe.
Then we get there an abatement, and the county went in
Well,
and cleaned it
I got
up.
that, but
And this was our
Yeah.
cost.
to
And I-
recover the cost,
You covered the cost of the abatement.
yeah.
Right, I'm not even sure that the property is delinquent.
Yeah,
with that.
But irrespective, at some point, if they choose to sell the property to a different party, before that
Okay.
transaction can be completed,
Okay.
our lien has to be satisfied. So basically, at some point, we
I
will
got
get
it.
our monies
I
back.
got it.
It's roughly a 5-year process.
I wasn't sure what the property was worth or where we
Well,
were at.
and assuming that the property's not delinquent, I haven't checked it, it would take 5 years to recover through a tax sale.
Okay.
If it's not voluntarily.
Okay, all right.
Any more questions on the staff report?
Yeah, I got a question that probably goes to you, Richard. I mean, I know this is lien, but is there, are we charging interest? Is there late fees? I mean, is something accruing on this? Because I didn't see that in here.
Yeah, it'll accrue penalties just like a tax would for the duration that it's on. The only caveat I would say is that if, for example, the abatement lien makes the minimum bid for a tax sale higher than its value and we don't get any bids, that would be the first thing that I would strip off to reoffer the property for a lower amount. So if the abatement lien results in the delinquent taxes being $50,000 and the property's only worth $25,000, that'll be the first thing that I take off. We'll obviously offer it first at whatever the total is. But in some cases, the abatement costs exceed the market value of the property.
So I guess my question is, like I said, I didn't see that in here in the lien. Does that need to be worded in there, or is that just?
It's a function of RT.
Okay.
Okay, any more questions for Mr. Moore?
No.
Any questions from the public on the staff report? See none, Madam Clerk, is there any correspondence?
No, sir.
Anybody wish to speak in favor of this public hearing? Anybody wish to speak against? If not, we'll bring it back to the board for board direction.
I'll move approval of, what is it here? How do you word this, right?
You adopt a resolution directing staff to record the lien
Okay.
on the action.
Yes.
We We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Madam Clerk, would you call the board?
Supervisor Chapman?
Aye.
Supervisor Alba?
Aye.
Supervisor Wassick?
Aye.
Supervisor Hammond?
Aye.
Supervisor Fowler?
All right. And I bet close the public hearing at 7:43. Okay, we'll move on to proclamation, the 1030 U.S. Forest Service. Jerry, you've been patiently sitting back there. You're not too far away.
No.
I've seen it worse.
Yep. Well, thank you very much for having Jerry Bird, Forest Supervisor, Lassen National Forest. Came to talk to you about the Secure Rural Schools Act. As you know, that the act was taken and tied to with the helium bill that Congress passed. It was a rider to that bill, and it authorized it for an additional year, which the board has to relay to the governor's office your election on how you want the money distributed into the various titles. As best Heidi and I could read it, the wording of the law remains the same on how much has to go into Title II, which puts us in a bit of a situation here on the Lassen. Our RAC, our Resource Advisory Committee, hung with us for over a decade, and a lot of those people have now moved on with their lives, and Heidi has tried in today's paper and last week's paper to recruit new members of the Resource Advisory Committee, and we're not getting a tremendous outpouring of folks looking to step forward and serve on the RAC. And so the money that comes under Title II has to go through the Resource Advisory Committee Act. And Heidi will kind of present some information about the various groups that we're looking for candidates from, and kind of what we're facing as far as having to get those people approved through the Secretary of Agriculture. It's something that I do not have locally the authority to take and say that a person is on the RAC. It has to go all the way back to Washington, D.C., and it's actually the Secretary of Agriculture that appoints people to the committee. That way they can serve on the committee, and we do not get crossways with the with FACA, the Advisory Committee Act. So, Heidi, if you could present some of the information, please. And
if you look at the handout that I gave you, the first page is a summary of recruitment efforts to date, and then the second page is our media release as it went out, and then the third page on the RAC members, there's a list of the different, there's the 3 different categories, and then within those categories, those are the type of interests that need to be represented. So, at this point in time, we do have a few candidates from my recruitment in 2012, but we are still looking for organized labor, non-timber forest products, commercial or recreation fishing interests. I do have an applicant that holds a federal grazing permit, but we also have to send in nominations, candidates for the non-industrial private landowner, which is a new category under the new legislation. And then in category B, I have 2 vacancies that I need candidates for. And let's see, the nationally or regionally recognized horse and burro group, and a nationally recognized environmental organization. And they're also even though I do have some applicants, I need 2 applicants per group. So even if I have somebody on the energy, I need another one. So I have to submit 2 applications per category, per group,
Per group or per category?
per group.
Do you want us to go beat the bushes or what?
Yeah, that's really what we, it's like some assistance.
If you guys can help, that would be,
You guys got any
So you need
ideas?
36 applicants?
yes.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
It is. Yeah, we realize that, and, you know, that's why we were very fortunate for the first roughly decade of secure rural schools to have our original RAC members hang with us through that entire process. And, you know, those that have tenure on the board know the last about 3 years of secure rural schools, it was a real whiplash. We weren't sure if Congress was going to renew it, and we were rushing to hold meetings so that the advisory committee could get together and make the recommendations. The amount of money we were getting was continually changing. They got caught in sequester last year, if you recall, so we were only dealing with less than $70,000 total in 2013. It appears in 2014 they've got things figured out quite a bit better in that they have not allocated the Title I and Title III monies yet. So therefore, we don't know exactly what it says in the new Budget Act, which the House passed, and the Senate is expected to pass this week, but we don't expect that there will be the enormous hit on Title II that we took last year to make sure that Title III and Title I did not have to get refunded. You know, I'm sure the longtime board members remember all of the angst that went into how much money was going to be perhaps have to go back out of Title III. So we think it is a much better process this year, but still standing the advisory committee up. We need any assistance you can offer to encourage members of the county that fall into the various groups under the categories to assist us. And it is, we should be looking at about 160,000 if we get our full allocation and we don't wind up. It is going down, and it has been ever since the renewal of the act. It goes down by a prescribed percentage, but we anticipate $150,000 to $165,000 should be available for disaggregation this year.
Have you got any numbers yet?
I
I
do,
haven't.
it was on my board report last week, I don't have that with me right now, but I think it was between 150 and 160 for
Yeah.
Title II.
We don't know yet because the budgets haven't come out. That's our guesstimate. And then I never know whether they're gonna, seems like we're special in California. We have like another point-something% that comes off the top each year in a reduction, so that's why we're being a little ambiguous with the numbers, as we don't know.
How many current members do you have on the board? On the board, I guess.
On your right?
I have a number of applications that I can forward to the department, but right now, we're shy enough to bring it back up and have a quorum. So I need a lot of help. And in all honesty, when the last time I talked to the folks in Washington, if we don't find people locally, they will widen the pool to people in Northern California, and I personally don't think that's in our best interest. I don't see a person from San Francisco that maybe, say, would represent
National Environmental
commercial
Group.
fisheries
Other jacket.
is gonna benefit us on our resource advisory committee, because they're gonna be looking at projects that are from the county. So that's just my take. I mean, if we have to go that direction, maybe we do, but I would prefer to keep it with local people. We've been so successful.
When is this necessary?
Excuse me?
What's the timeline on this?
As soon as possible.
Well, the county,
Seriously, and I'll tell you why, or I'll
Well,
let Jerry tell you
you know,
why.
the county needs to get your election in by the end of this month, the governor's office. So you should have already received a letter indicating that, hopefully.
Yeah.
We made the election last week.
Okay, so that's
Board did.
gone in. So 7% to Title II again, I'm assuming?
8% to Title II, 7% to Title III.
Okay, so that 8% of the total allocation will then go to Title II, and that's what the RAC deals with. And getting the names in to our Washington office and then vetted and gone through the department is an onerous process. It is not something that works very quickly. Therefore, the quicker we can get the names in, because we have to have the money not only, we know what we're going to fund, but we actually have to have the money obligated, basically the money transferred to those entities by the end of this fiscal year, which is September 30th, 2014, where that money will be gone. And so it's a little bit different than it's been in the past, where we've had a little more flexibility. So getting the stuff into Washington, getting the names into Washington, going through the process, probably on a very streamlined basis, 3 months would be almost mind-boggling if it went that fast, which puts us into, March, and then holding the meeting and getting the proponents put together, and then getting the money actually obligated by September 30th. We're on an exceedingly tight timeline, and just the fact that our Resource Advisory Committee has now moved on to other things in their lives puts us in a little unique situation. As best Heidi has been able to find out, in all of California, the other counties that have RACs have been able to have a more of a rotation of people going through their RACs, so they're able to stand theirs up with the renewal of the act. Because we didn't know until very late in the year when it was tied to, like I said, it was tied to the Helium Act. I guess that helium is considered an important resource, and so they put it as a rider on the Helium Act, the Helium Bill. And that's how Secure Rural Schools got renewed this time. It wasn't tied to the Farm Bill or anything else that has not yet passed. So,
That was Congress's offsets, because the House has been demanding offsets for any of the programs that go forward. And so the offset was the royalties out of the helium gas that they released. That's the national resource.
Okay, Aaron?
Aaron?
Yeah, I got a question for you. On category B, where you have vacancies, you have the nationally recognized environmental organizations. Can you give me a definition of that? Because
The Sierra Club, Nature Conservancy, Wilderness,
the National
Society.
Farm Bureau, the National Farmers Organization, the National Cattlemen's Association, because those are all very good environmental and stewardship groups.
okay.
I mean, what would those,
I can ask. I'd be willing to accept applications from those.
okay.
Because I don't have definitions on the groups, other than what's been presented here. What's presented here is straight out of the legislation. So I didn't change it.
Jim?
I have a question for Mr. Byrd. When you talked about the appointments coming from the department in Washington, of course, that's an onerous process. I know that the BLM RAC, that those appointments, that the Department of Interior, the Secretary of Interior actually makes the appointment, actually get vetted through the White House. In other words, the White House has a completely separate layer that they put on top of. So it's tough enough to get through the bureaucracy in terms of the department. I'll say in this case Ag versus Interior. Once that's cleared, they go through a whole nother process now. And this has been true now for 2 or 3 administrations. It's not unique with the current bunch, even though I think the current bunch make it even harder, because I know with the BLM RAC we've had some difficulties. And even after the people applied and they put in all their paperwork, I know because I was one that got appointed and had to go through, but I turned all the paperwork in locally, went to the state office. The state office shuffled through it, everything was fine. They forwarded it to the Department of Interior, and they did whatever they had to do, and so they transferred it over to the White House. But then I get a call from somebody in the White House who wants me to recreate all that same paperwork because apparently they didn't accept, either they lost it or they didn't accept it as being valid coming from the department. So basically, we had to recreate everything a second time and deal with this. I have no idea who this lady was or what she was doing, but I mean, it was kind of a bizarre type process. And it took like 9 months or 10 months, and so, it's a 3-year appointment, so by the time you get appointed, half your term's over.
That's-
Absolutely, Jim, and,
That's what's
you
been
know,
happening here.
it does get vetted quite rigorously at the department level. One of the things we get a lot of attention paid to is are we getting a broad enough spectrum of society into it? And that is very difficult in Lassen County. We don't have a large minority population, and therefore, quite often, there will be concerns that African Americans or Pacific Islanders are underrepresented, and we try to explain our situation and give them our demographics of what we have in Lassen County. It has not played very well with them. You have to beat the bushes to make sure that you've got.
We tried to become Lassen County, Hawaii once, and that would have made us a Pacific Islander if we would have succeeded.
But, yeah, so you are right. I mean, it does get vetted through, like in 2010 or 2011, Butte County finally finished like a 3-year attempt to finally get their rack stood up. And it was a tremendous amount of angst. So yes, I mean, like I said, 3 months to me, I was almost a pipe dream to think it could happen that quickly. 9 months is very common. Over a year is not uncommon. And so the faster we can move on this, and anything that the board can do to help us get the word out into the county, particularly into these groups that the money has gone to a lot of really good projects here in the county. I know the board has always been very supportive of one that's been kind of almost from the beginning was the tribal youth crew that the Susanville Indian Rancheria has had. It's been a very successful program. The Weed Warriors up in the northern county have consistently been able to get funded through this. So I mean, there's a lot of good things have happened in Lassen County through Title II, and if we can't stand the rack up, we're not sure exactly what our options are. The worst option is to have the money go back to the Treasury, but that may be one of the options that would indeed.
Well, that's kind of maybe what they're angling for you to do. I have a question for Heidi. What's a non-timber forest products group? Is it like steel trees versus wood trees? I mean, I thought forest products are timber related. What's a non-timber forest products group?
What comes to mind for me is like your floral industry,
Like botanical stuff.
botanical stuff, boughs, holly, or what's the one I hate that everyone?
Mistletoe.
Sorry, you guys, it just spreads it everywhere.
That grows on a tree, doesn't it?
Right, so you're looking at your floral industry or your non-timber would, forest products could also be small landowners that maybe are removing firewood versus commercial timber.
We'll make sure when we see Mike next, and we'll tell him you don't like this.
Now, on timber, what we're talking about stuff you can saw onto boards. So even like our biomass is considered a non-timber resource. So the timber resource is something that can actually be either peeled into plywood or made into dimensional timber. So that's how they're defining it.
That doesn't make sense. I'm sorry.
All right, then we gotta move on.
Alright, so you listed 5 items out of those categories. So 3 out of category A and 2 out of category B.
Mhm.
So that means, so all the others obviously
I have-
filled with 2 in each.
I don't have 2, I just have 1 in each category.
Okay, but you
So
mentioned you need 2. Is that just if there's a vacancy, you need to submit 2 applications for?
If I had 2 applications that I could submit in the next month or 2, that would be really awesome.
But say category A, organized labor or non-timber forest product group, so do we not have any representation there? Do we have,
Not at this time,
okay, and in order to get representation, you mentioned you need 2 applications.
right?
Is that
That's
mandatory
the
or is that?
instructions that I'm getting on this call.
You have to have a minimum of 2 so they can pick one of the 2.
Uh-huh.
So we're 10 applications short, is that right?
At
We need 10
least.
applications.
Plus, it would be really awesome if we could send in 2 alternates per category.
Well, I mean, I think we'd be doing well to see a 10.
Yeah, I
Agreed.
know, that's been my experience
Yeah.
with this program.
So we need 10, that's what I was trying to figure, so the others are all covered.
So to fill the 3 that you need in category A, you want us to come up with 6 nominees.
So we need our news media to help us out here.
They actually have, there's been 2 ads.
I see the
that-
2 ads been running.
And then I haven't seen the, because we only have weeklies in the North County, and I
We can
haven't
work on the
seen.
radio.
And then maybe, Richard, would it be possible to ask the radios to do a public service?
I would suggest you also get a hold of Jane Braxton Little over in Greenville. She's the stringer for the Bee because there's a big article in the Bee about the BLM BLM hiring of their seasonal workers and stuff. And it's almost like it was a front page story on the electronics, and I thought, wow, that's pretty impressive. And it came out of the local BLM offices for the fire crews and, hot shots and things like that. There were some deadlines.
Sure.
She promoted it, and another good source would be Jeremy Crusoe with SusanLittleStuff.com.
Jeremy's been really good. I wouldn't be surprised if this is already on there. I just didn't have time to check this
Got
morning.
to check, because that's
But
well
did Jane do a media release?
Yeah, she basically did a story on some release apparently the BLM folks, Jeff Fontana had given her, and she wrote up a big story. I just read it this morning online with the Bee. It popped up on the statewide, the CICG and the Rough and Tumble, which is the statewide news feed for all the political stuff.
She's on my media release list, and so is Jeremy, so they've gotten it. Because we sent it out first of the
Now,
month.
you have it says a whole,
But I'll call her.
county, somebody who holds county or local elected office. So if we like to put in like Larry and Bob, as 2 sacrificial lambs so they can be vetted.
Or Larry and Tom.
Those are filled, because you didn't bring
Wait a
those
minute.
up, right?
No.
You brought up 10 items.
Because in the past, Mr. Keeper sat on this
Right.
representing an elected
So yeah, I'd be
category from
happy
the
to have
board.
both your applications,
Yeah,
and
but
I can sit down with you
I'm
and.
confused because you didn't bring that up.
I have 1 in each one of those, but I don't have county or elected office. The only elected office I had was, he's school, Rich DeVarney.
So is there more than 5 categories that you need, or you're not sure? Because you mentioned 5.
I have 5, no, I don't. Yes, I do. I have 5 applicants right now for category C. One of them is schools and a teacher, and then the rest are public at large. So right now, county or elected office, well, DeVarney's elected office.
He's elected office,
But
but,
I don't have a county. He represents both,
yeah. But you need more than one.
but
so
I need more than one.
Yeah, so maybe,
Okay, but can we go through that again? Because
Do you guys wanna do that
Category A,
here?
you said we needed organized labor for non-timber forest, is that right?
Right.
Okay, then you went down to commercial or recreational fishing.
Yes.
Okay, then you went to hold federal grazing permits. That's all you mentioned in category A.
Right.
Am I missing anything?
So, no.
Okay, then category B, you mentioned the first item, nationally recognized environmental organization, and then you skipped down to the second to the last point, nationally or regionally recognized wild horse and bird. So are those the 2 in category B?
So I have to disperse rec, archaeological and historical, and hunting organization. So I still need nationally recognized wild horse and burrow, environmental organization, regional or local, and national. So I need the first two,